All right, let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Members, please take your seats. Sergeant at Arms will please secure the doors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, this morning we are very pleased to have Pastor Larry Patton of Chesapeake Church in Huntingtown, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 27th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you. I'm going to take this in for a minute. This is awesome. Good morning. What a pleasure it is and a privilege to be here to bless the opening of this session of the Maryland State Senate. This is a Good Friday, and not good because of the death that occurred on that Friday, but what was to come. And I cannot thank Senator Michael Jackson enough for allowing me the privilege to be here and open this session. Just to be in this room where so much history has been made is breathtaking. And just for the record, if there's another invite, I'm down for it. Let us pray. Father God, through whom all things were created, you gave birth to the earth and the universe. I ask for your blessings over this morning's session. I pray that the men and women here today come together for the good of your greatest creation, mankind. I pray that they have eyes to see that each person in this chamber and each person that they govern is a unique creation whose life has been part of your plan from the beginning and worthy of their respect and love. I pray that their ears hear the guidance of the Holy Spirit, the source of all godly wisdom, and ears to hear each other humbly, free from bias, and with an open mind. And as the psalmist says, I pray that the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and confirm for us the work of our hands. Yes, confirm the work of our hands. I pray that the words spoken today further your will. And I pray all these things in the name of the Most High. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming Larry Patton. Larry Patton, you know his work in many facets of his life as a true servant. Senators, Larry Patton is a member of the Southern Maryland Fire Association down in Calvert County, and as you may know, Calvert was the last to bring on any paid members to their fire and rescue services, only to their EMTs, and so we owe a great deal of debt to those men and women who volunteer their time away from their families to ensure that we are safe. You also know Mr. Patton, maybe not by the name, but his pastoral assignment at the Chesapeake Church in Huntingtown, Maryland, but also in addition to that, In Hunger. We have seen them in the work that they do in Southern Maryland. In Hunger deals with 73 food pantries in Southern Maryland. They're a vital part to ensuring that our families are nourished properly, and particularly our young folks, so that they can learn on a full stomach. So it is my honor to have you here this morning and to show the goodness of what we do on this particular day. Thank you very much. Would you all please join me in a round of applause?
All right. Thank you, Senator, and we will journalize the Reverend's wonderful invocation this morning on this beautiful Friday. All right, has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? It appears so. The clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Senators, before we jump into work today, we have two very, very special events, So let's begin with our resolution. So we'll begin, if we could ask our first half of guests to join us at the front and recognize the senator from the 27th District.
Mr. President, colleagues, on behalf of the Prince George's County delegation, I rise to recognize our Surgeon General today. It's an honor to introduce to you Prince George's County's own, currently living in District 28 in Charles County, and Morgan State University alum, Lieutenant Colonel Raymond Scotty Dingle, to the body, Lieutenant General Dingle is the Surgeon General of the United States Army, and he is retiring this year after a distinguished tenure of service. He and his 45th Surgeon General of the United States Army and Commanding General of the United States Army Medical Command. He served our country throughout the world, including deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Europe, and has been honored with numerous decorations, including the Army Distinguished Service Medal, the Legion of Merit, a Bronze Star Medal, and a Meritorious Service Medal. I believe that we do have a resolution, but before I get to that, Mr. President, I want to recognize a couple of folks that are alongside him today. Someone that everyone in this body, if you don't know, you should know. My favorite chair, now retired Delegate Carolyn J.B. Howard. Luke, I got you.
Welcome back.
And the first gentleman of that chairperson, Mr. Earl. So if you would stand. So, as I mentioned before, we are very honored to have one of Prince George's own, Morgan State's own, Charles County's own before us, and if we could have the resolution. I'm sorry. We also have the chair of the Prince George delegation here as well, Delegate Nick Charles.
Welcome, sir. Welcome. All right, the clerk will read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Lieutenant General Raymond Scott Dingle in recognition of your retirement as the 45th Surgeon General of the U.S. Army. We commend your dedication and exemplary service to the country and its citizens. Congratulations. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on the 7th day of April, 2023.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. To Lieutenant General Raymond Scott Dingle, we want to celebrate you and thank you for your service to this country, to the people, and to the people of Maryland, as serving as the 45th Surgeon General of the U.S. Army. Thank you and congratulations on your retirement.
Take the picture.
Sorry. All right, all right. Busy day today. Busy day today. We got to.
Mr. President.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd District.
Yes, Mr. President. Being from Prince George's County, I also want to recognize General Dingle. We've known each other for 37 years, going back to Morgan State, and we were in ROTC together.
At 6 years old.
At 6 years old. So I wanted to personally thank my friend, wish him all the best, and that's my main man. Thank you
Excellent.
so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're honored by your presence. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our next special event today is one that was postponed under unfortunate circumstances, but is just appropriate today more than any other day. And I would like to invite up Elaine Bachman, who is our state archivist, who has a presentation for us.
Good morning, President Ferguson, members of the Senate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to be with you again this session to present the first Citizen Award of the Maryland Senate. Created by the Archives and the Senate President in 1992 to honor the historic debate that occurred between Charles Carroll of Carrollton, anonymously calling himself First Citizen, and his fellow Annapolitan Daniel Delaney, Jr. Each year, the Senate confers this award to individuals who exemplify willingness to publicly engage, educate, advocate, debate, and lead on behalf of issues they believe in and in service to their fellow citizens. Today's recipient could not join us last month due to the passing of his beloved wife. And in welcoming him here today, I know I speak for all in this chamber in expressing our condolences and in recognizing the importance that family specifically spouses, play in supporting and guiding the work of those who devote their lives to public service. Today's recipient is well known for his advocacy of the study of African American history and his enthusiasm for supporting African American political candidates. Professor Larry Gibson managed his first campaign while a student at Howard University, helping a friend get elected homecoming queen. He himself had already been the first black class president at Baltimore City College before coming to Howard, and from there he got his law degree at Columbia University. By the late 1960s, he was managing and advising campaigns for, among others, Judge Joseph Howard for the Supreme Bench of Baltimore City, the first African-American judge in the city, and Congressman Perrin Mitchell, the first black Marylander elected to Congress. Of his groundbreaking efforts, Gibson said, "I thought it was important for African Americans to gain full participation, beyond voting, in the political process. Part of that meant removing barriers to holding political office." I first came to know Professor Gibson early in my career at the Archives when he co-taught a legal history class on race and the law at Johns Hopkins University with then State Archivist Edward Pappenfuss. Larry and Ed used the archival record to demonstrate the impact of the legacy of slavery and systemic racism on legal cases from the 18th century through to the Civil Rights era, leading students in the critical examination of our past that is so essential to any chance of understanding it. Professor Gibson currently teaches at the Francis King Carey School of Law at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, where he has been on the faculty for 38 years. His scholarship led him to write the award-winning 2012 book, Young Thurgood, The Making of a Supreme Court Justice, drawn from his own personal connection to Thurgood Marshall, a connection that led to his advocacy for the renaming of the airport as the BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport in 2005, and most recently inspired the newest portrait in the state's collection, created through the initiative of Senator Will Smith. Commissioned to paint a portrait of Thurgood Marshall for the Judicial Proceedings Committee, it was Larry's personal account of how Marshall posed for a photo with Donald Gaines Murray, for whom he had just won entrance into the University of Maryland School of Law in 1935, that motivated artist Ernest Shaw to create the dynamic image of a young Marshall, still laying the foundation for his brilliant career. Kurt Schmoke, now president of the University of Baltimore, has said of Professor Gibson, "Anybody can be a lawyer." Larry Gibson is an example of a lawyer as social engineer. It is my honor to present the first Citizen Award to Professor Larry Gibson.
The mic is yours, Professor.
Well, one thing that comes from teaching at the same school for 49 years is that you, and it being a law school, you end up with many former students who are lawyers, but also many former students who are lawmakers. I'm delighted and proud every day of the President of the Senate, of his Chief of Staff, of Senator Sidnor, and a few other folks around here. And so I'm ready to hold class. And so thank you. Thank you. By the way, I was summoned here today without an indication as to where I was coming, and no one would exactly tell me. Well, I knew where, but not for what. And so this is a delightful event for me. Thank you very much. And thank many of you who sent condolences in connection with my loss of Diana about 3 weeks ago. It was, I'm still celebrating 50 years with a brilliant and beautiful woman, and I appreciate all that you have done, many of you here, to help me during this period. And this war award today just caps it all off. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So, little piece of trivia. Professor Gibson was also the law professor that gave me my lowest grade in law school. Take a guess, what class do we think it was? Election law. Election law. Totally appropriate, right? We are so thankful for your leadership, Professor Gibson. You just have indelible mark on history in all the ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you've done. It's been incredible. Yes, Chair recognized Senator from Baltimore City.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, I join in the celebration of the iconic Professor Larry Gibson, someone who I've known my entire life. And when I was applying to law school, I went to visit him at University of Maryland, Mr. President, and he said, "Hey, come in my office and let me show you a picture of my daddy, your daddy." And I'm like, wow, that's exciting. But I thought that meant something, but I didn't get into University of Maryland, Mr. President. I went to University of Baltimore. But I just want to say, he's a crusader, and he was definitely heavily involved in the civil rights struggle. He was an ally of my father back then, and my first recollection of him was when he represented former school superintendent Roland Patterson, and it was a huge systemic injustice that was happening in Baltimore, and he was the attorney of record that led all of the protests. And his organization skills showed then, because it wasn't enough for him to be the legal attorney. He's the one who got the entire community involved in uprising and protest. And if you may remember that he was also the crusader years ago to rename Friendship Airport Thurgood Marshall BWI Airport. And so I just want to say we love you. If you're on Facebook, go to his Facebook page and watch all of the posts about his beautiful wife, Diana, traveling around the world, and we're very thankful for you. Thurgood Marshall has no greater champion.
Well said. Well said. Senator from College Park.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I didn't go to law school, didn't even try to get into law school, therefore was never Professor Gibson's student, but he's been my friend for over 35 years. We've been involved in a whole variety of political campaigns primarily, read his books, but mostly he's just been a very good friend, and I'm just thrilled to see him accept this award today.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. That's Chair recognized Senator from Baltimore City, followed by the Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brother Gibson, as I often refer to him, is a dear friend and mentor. I will say he is a part of the greatest fraternity ever in the world, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Z chapter, a single member chapter with over 50 years of service in that grand fraternity. But he's been such a role model to me and so many others. And so I appreciate definitely. I was surprised to see him here, and I didn't even know he was coming. I was like, what is Brother Gibson doing here? But no, if you've ever been a part of a Brother Gibson's production around election time of lawn signs in his backyard, I will tell you it is a sight to be seen. It's very much organized, but he is a part of the long fabric of Baltimore and Maryland politics here, and so we're so grateful, and you definitely are deserving of the honor today. Thank you, Brother Gibson.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the body. Brother Gibson, as we call him, I'm grateful that we've had a chance to know each other. Way back in 1994, he and the late Honorable Wayne K. Carey, who became our county executive, we put together the first African-American ticket. And I was fortunate to have both Brother Carey and Brother Gibson as the advisors of my campaign, and many of them made it through that year, and we have been growing in numbers with great candidates since then. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service to the state of Maryland. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well said. Thank you. Senator representing the former student cohort.
Thank you very much. Except for the thing that the senator in front of me said about the greatest fraternity, he's right. Professor Gibson has been such a great mentor to people like me and many of us in this room. When I first considered running, I went to him. We had breakfast on, I think it was 25th Street. He has this little diner right on the corner, and the man, he's all about logos and colors and things like that. He introduced me to the gentleman who produced the logo for Kirsch Smoke at the time, and so if you all would ever go on my site, that's the logo. It's because of him. When we first met in law school, he told me, and I didn't know this, but he grew up, with my grandfather in the Church of God in Christ, so we had that connection. And as a black student at the University of Maryland School of Law, for the past 20 years, he's been the one to kind of pull alumni together to make certain that we had this common thread. So every 5 years we have a reunion, which is, I think we have our next one coming up this upcoming fall, which he's recruited me on the committee. He tells you what you're going to be doing, so so no, this award couldn't go to a greater person, and I appreciate and I love him as well.
Well said. Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City and County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Professor Gibson is my constituent. It's been my friend, and I'm just so honored to be able to see you here today. And also, you really made a huge impact when you understand that signs may not vote, but they carry a message. So thank you so much for all you've done for all of us, and your political theory and acumen. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator. Thank you. This chair recognizes the chair of judicial proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't want to rise up too early because I got a little emotional watching this, but I did want to. There are very few people that are originals, and you are an original for the state of Maryland and for the entire country. Not only through the mentorship that you provided to your law students and people like me that didn't, go to the University of Maryland Law School, but you have shown us a way, and you have never let us forget our history and the shoulders that we're standing on to be in these seats and to cast these votes every single day. You never let us forget that history and never let us forget how to appreciate all of the struggle that has gone into every single opportunity that we create for the next generation. And so I just want to say thank you for everything, and well-deserved congratulations, and we all love you very much.
Well said. Well said. Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to tell you all that my friendship with this wonderful, wonderful gentleman goes back during the days of Cora Rice, for those of you in Prince George's County. And we were trying to make a decision as to who we were going to support for the county executive seat. Comes Wayne Keith Curry. And we made a decision. It was just 2 elected officials in Prince George's County that decided to step on board to give Wayne Curry support for the county executive seat. And we were trying to organize. And if anybody knows Cora Rice and these other folks that were involved, and she had since passed, as a matter of fact, but we were trying to decide how we were going to get this campaign on its feet. Wayne Curry, if those of you who know Wayne Curry, was a very interesting soul. To make a long story short, comes Larry Gibson. And we were all sitting in the room, and he came in and closed the door. And within a week, had the most wonderful organized campaign. And we worked very hard in Prince George's County because we believed so strongly that with the help of this wonderful, wonderful gentleman who understood politics and how to organize and how to get people involved, would win. A week before the election, the opponent was leading by 19 points. He brought us in the room and said, we're not going to pay any attention to numbers. We're going to keep it moving. And as a result, we got one of the finest individuals that ever walked in Prince George's County, who called Prince George's County his home, one. And it had a lot to do with the wonderful organizational strategies that were put forth by Larry Gibson. And you know, he just didn't talk about the election, but he talked about belief and hope and trust, and he just kept everybody focused on the agenda. And I just want to personally thank him. As a matter of fact, I would think that I'm here today in Annapolis because of the things, everything that I learned from you and the foolishness that I had to put up with from that Wayne Curry and that crowd that I was running around with. But you need to be commended for all that you have done, not only for the people in the state of Maryland, but around the country, and you've gone outside of the country to organize. And I really want to say thank you. And you know, you look wonderful. The Lord is really keeping you, and I am very, very pleased that you're in good health, and God is not through with you yet. So we really want you to know that we're glad you're here, and I cannot think of anybody more deserving of this award than you, Mr. Larry Gibson, my wonderful friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Well, we are so thankful for you, Larry. It is just, you are a leader, trailblazer in all the ways. Thank you. We're so glad that you could be here today to join us. We're honored by you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, great way to start out home opener day. Good Friday, all the things today. What a special way. It's great. All right, let's go ahead and see if we have other introductions. Yes, Chair County Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think they're still here, but please join me in welcoming, many of us know here, Melissa Broom. She's a constituent of mine. She's here with her children, Owen, Eloise, and Carson, and they are on spring break, so they get to have spring break with Go to Work with Mom Day.
Wonderful. She is wonderful. We appreciate your mom. Yes, Chair recognized Senator from Howard and Montgomery counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, in the gallery behind you, I have two constituents and fabulous interns, Lily and Jesse. They are also here on spring break. Lily is a senior at River Hill High School, and Jesse is a sophomore at Marriott's Ridge. Could we give them a warm Senate welcome?
Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Chair recognized Senator from St. Mary's and Calvert.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I could get them to stand up, many of you know in the gallery in front of us, we have Christina, my chief of staff, but she brought two very special people, her two children, Lauren and Landon. And I just got a text from one of them, and I can't point it out which one it was, but they wanted to know where the famous senator on the floor was sitting. Now, I won't use that senator's name. And I said, what do you mean famous? They said, the one who slapped Chris Rock.
That's funny. That's funny.
So that is definitely out of the mouths of babes. And if we could please give a warm Senate welcome.
Welcome. That's funny. That is funny. Yes, Chair recognized Senator from Frederick.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's going to be hard to follow,
yes,
but we're going to do it. I want to welcome a very special visitor from Frederick County. With us today, we have Dr. Mariella Roca right here in the front row. Go ahead, stand up, Dr. Roca. She's an Air Force veteran who served in Afghanistan. She currently is working at the Veterans Affairs headquarters, and she manages all military medical logistics for our service members and their continued care after completion of active duty and any disabilities they receive. And would you give her a warm welcome, and thank you for your service, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for your service. Thank you, thank you. All right, other introductions? Any other piece of business before we jump in today? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We've got a lot of work today. Let's think about schedule here. We'll try and go till 2:30ish. We'll take a break. We'll then come back later tonight or this afternoon and kind of get through as much as we can. We'll see how it goes, and it's going to be a long day, but hopefully if we get through the vast majority, we don't have to come in tomorrow, and we can close it down land the plane on Monday. So let's start with yeas and nays. We've got calendar number 10. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 5, Senator Kramer, Hate Crimes, Civil Remedy. Senate Bill 42.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. We have calendar 11. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 61, Senator Bailey, Property Tax
Majority
Credit.
Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. We have a first reading House bills. Calendar 37. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 97, Delegate Bartlett, Criminal Procedure Expungement of Records, Redeem Act of 2023, Rules. House Bill
Majority
2.
Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to the Rules Committee. We've got House number 38.
House Joint Resolution number 4, the Speaker locating the new Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters in Maryland. Rules.
All right. The resolution will be referred to the Rules Committee. We have a message from the executive. Clerk will read the message. We have a couple messages, so we'll read several of them.
Dear Mr. President, this is to inform you of my intent to withdraw 11 appointments previously submitted to the Senate for advice and consent. I will submit new nominations to replace those appointments. The withdrawals referenced are on the second page of this letter. Thank you for your assistance and support. Sincerely, Wes Moore, Governor.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. These names will be, the message is available on the floor system. We have another message from the executive. Clerk will read the message.
Dear President Ferguson, I am submitting this letter to correct the term dates of 162 appointments that were among those submitted for confirmation by the Senate. They are listed on the following pages. I look forward to your favorable approval of these term corrections. Thank you for your assistance and support. Sincerely, Wes Moore, Governor.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized, again on the floor system. And one last additional message from the executive. Clerk, read the message.
Dear Mr. President, I am submitting this letter to correct the spelling of appointee names and the seat designation on a few of the board nominations submitted for this legislative session. Caroline County Board of Licensure Commission, the seat occupied by Michael Mann Sr. should be changed from substitute to member. Cecil County Board of Elections, Jennifer L. Castellanos should be changed from Jennifer L. Graham. Cecil County Board of Elections, Holcomb Greer should be changed to Holcomb E. Greer. Open Meetings Law Compliance Board state the seat occupied by Lynn M. Marshall should be designated member, not chair. Infants and Toddler Interagency Coordinating Council for the seat occupied by Brenda Husey Gardner, PhD, should be designated simple provider, not provider chair. And Maryland Community Health Resources Commission, Maria Hankerson should be changed to Maria Jacqueline Hankerson. Sincerely, Wes Moore, Governor.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized. On to the real work of the day. Not that that isn't real work, but let's go ahead and take up the Committee on Finance, report number 56. We have a Senate bill. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 171, Senator Feldman, Private Passenger Motor Vehicle Liability Insurance, Enhanced Underinsured Motorist Coverage, Opt-out Option, Favorable, 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Anne Arundel as floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 171 is almost identical to House Bill 128. There's one technical amendment. So this is the bill that requires a person who obtains private passenger motor vehicle insurance at the time a new policy is purchased to opt out of obtaining enhanced underinsured motorist coverage through a waiver process instead of opting in under the current law. Amendments 1 and 2 require the waiver form to display information about the coverage in 14-point boldface type and limit the opt-out selection process for enhanced underinsured motorist coverage under the bill to new policies issued on or after July 1st, 2024. Amendment 3 sunsets the bill after 5 years and requires the Maryland Insurance Administration to study and submit certain reports. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the Senator from Anne Arundel.
Yes. Is this the cross-file of House Bill 128?
The floor leader yields.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Yes, it is.
Okay. So I started looking into this because I'm concerned about ratepayers and how this may impact them. And it's an interesting bill. I saw coming from the House there was like 7 groups opposed to it, 6 for it. Is this form now where it's a consensus bill, or where does it stand?
Thank you, Senator. So the House passed the bill that said it would automatically be on your renewal policy as well as a new policy. And we did work with the ratepayers and the insurance industry and the, the legal counsel, and came up with that it would only be on new policies, and it has to be explained that you are in unless you opt out. And so there's the 14-point bold print that will, you should either find online, or if you sit down with your agent, it'll be explained to you the cost of the coverage and whether you want to opt out or stay in.
Okay, so all parties are good with this now?
Seem to be. We haven't had any objections since the Senate passed the amended version.
Okay, because that's not quite what I'm hearing. Can you just briefly for the Senate body, what were the two sides as far as the opposition versus why this is important?
Well, the opposition came from a couple of groups, including consumer rights, one consumer rights group, and the insurance industry, because it would raise rates. So to automatically put it on your renewal when you had no explanation, it would just be this additional coverage that would pop up on your renewal and raise your rate. And so the committee didn't think that was fair to do, to have you have a coverage added to your policy that you didn't know about or you weren't requesting. So that's why we said on new business, currently on new business, you need to either opt in or out. So now what will happen on new business, a new policy, the coverage will be there, but you have the option to say, no, I don't want it.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe current law, the insurance companies have to inform or offer this to them. I think it's in writing, so yes, they have the option. So currently they're being offered it.
Yes.
And they can opt in. What percent opt in at this point?
We're told by the Maryland Insurance Administration about 2%.
About 2%. So 98% people aren't doing this. And is there currently a required amount of insurance that they have to have that's lower than what this enhanced would do?
Currently, state law is $30,000 per person, $60,000 total involved in an accident. And so currently on your policy, you have uninsured motorist of 30/60. Okay. You can't opt out of the minimum. You must take the minimum. But this enhances it. So number one, if you only had 30/60, you'd have maybe the 30,000 from the person that hit you, as well as 30,000 on your own policy. That's the enhancement piece.
Okay. So if currently 98% of the people who are getting written notice about this say they don't want it, this bill is coming in and saying that you must opt in by default, and only if you opt out, you're taken out of it, which gives me pause, because I believe a lot of people aren't going to look at this form and it's just going to automatically increase their rates. So the form that they have to fill out, is it required they have to give an answer yes or no, or is it just required that they have to opt out?
The form will be designed by the insurance commissioner, the MIA, as it currently is, and it will list all the different options, the enhanced or the regular uninsured motorist, and how much each coverage costs. And it's a policy coverage, it's not a per vehicle coverage, so it would be the same across your policy, but the form will be designed by the insurance commissioner.
But will an insurer have to send it back and say yes or no, or is it, if they don't send it back, they automatically get opted in?
You're using the term send back. I'm hopeful that they sit down with their insurance agent and understand the form and sign it at the time. But if they're working remotely, yes, they'd have to sign it and confirm one way or the other if they're going to opt out. Otherwise, yes, the coverage will be there if they don't opt out.
Okay. I mean, just on the face of this, and I'm not an insurance person, I know you are, it seems like people are not participating in this even though they have the facts. And this is not mandating they have to have it, but it's almost like trickery in the sense of, we're going to make you opt out and hope that a lot of people don't see that, because 98% of them are already saying we don't want it. This is just another method to get them to get into a program with higher rates. And then the other thing is, I'm hearing, and I don't know if the committee discussed this, but the House came over with a much bigger pool.
It was going to be on your renewal automatically.
Right. So now we have a smaller pool, and from what I understand, this is going to increase payout.
It could, although the insurance commissioner tells us that most claims settle under $30,000. The large majority of claims settle under $30,000. So we're not sure that it's going to increase payout.
Well, I mean, when you look at the for and against, I mean, you have the trial lawyers who are for this, and the insurance people who are saying we don't want to increase rates on the people. I mean, intuitively, that says that the payouts are going to be greater, obviously, the interest. So I just have thank you. I have real concern about this at a time of high inflation, groceries, everything going up, and this bill is going to put a lot of people with higher insurance rates, and they're not going to know about it, and it's just going to automatically put in there, and they have to fill out a form to say, I don't want to be in a system where they already said they don't want to be in it. I just don't think this is good legislation, and I will be voting against this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the Senator from Frederick County.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the floor leader would
yield for a question.
Thank you.
Senator may proceed.
Senator, I know you're very knowledgeable in this. I appreciate you doing this. I wasn't brought up to too much about this legislation, but I've been looking through it. I just have a couple questions I appreciate if you could answer. So on average, since it's only 2% that are currently opting into this program, what is the percentage of the rate increase that is affected on those policies?
Thank you for that question, Senator. It really varies based on your limits of liability you carry and all your other rating factors, where you live, the ages of the drivers, the ages of the vehicles. So the coverage will vary greatly on every policy.
So there's no like standard rough percentage you can estimate on how much this will increase people's rates?
No, it could be anywhere from a few dollars to $100. It's a very broad area.
For how, for what period of time? For a whole year? For 6 months?
Typically it's every 6 months.
Okay.
But realize the form that we're talking about will list on it all the options and how much each option costs. So people will know if they opt out, how much it saves, if they opt in, what it will cost.
Okay. So I guess, again, and going back to my good friend from Anne Arundel, why change from an opt-in to an opt-out? Is there something that has happened that has catastrophically occurred that we need to be aware of, that we have, these multiple peoples being injured and not being covered?
We had testimony from one person that she had no idea that she had the coverage offered to her, that it was, an opt-in coverage, and that had she had that coverage, she would have taken it because she was seriously injured in an accident and could only receive the $30,000. She thought she could also receive the $30,000 on her policy that she was paying for, but under current law, it's not enhanced. So that was, that's what we heard from a consumer. So again, it came over from the House that it would be on everyone's policy on renewal.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And so how is notification made available now as an opt-in?
Well, it should have been a form that you sign on, in the last 5 years. I can only talk about the last 5 years. It would have been a form when you purchased a new policy that you would be given that option. And I find it interesting.
I guess that's my question. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Senator. Okay, so I guess that's my question is, I'm forever buying a different car seemingly for my kids or helping them out or co-signing. I don't ever remember seeing an opt-in like this.
Well, and that's exactly what people testified to.
Well, but that leads me into my next question, which is, if we have this in place now that you can do this, and it's, some people in hindsight would have loved to have had it after they were injured. I understand that. We don't do a very good job of doing it now. So now we're going to mandate that it's an opt-in unless you opt out. So I guess my question is how are we going to make sure, because we've done not the greatest job of advertising or trying to put it out there, how are we going to make this notification to people that they can opt out of it? Is it going to be as, garnered into the letters of the language of those insurance bills, which I know you do? I mean, I get my bills and I don't get like a thirst to like get my renewal and be like, yes, I want to read this sucker and let's go. I don't. I'm not
I don't
that
even
guy.
read my renewals, Mr. Senator.
Okay.
But I will tell you, again, this is not on your renewal. This is not when you add a car to a current policy. This is when you purchase a new policy. So on a brand new policy, you're signing documents. You're signing the actual disclosure of the policy, selecting your coverages, what you're going to do about PIP, personal injury protection, and what you're going to do about uninsured motorists. So you have a number of documents that you sign, and that's when this would be presented.
So me as a current policyholder with my current insurer, I'll never have this issue of an increase coming up unexpectedly. It's only going to be if I were to switch insurance carriers or agents, then it would be an opt-in, or I'm sorry, an opt-out from this point forward. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I just want to make sure of that. I appreciate your answers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question remains on the amendments. Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th District on the amendments.
If the, thank you, Mr. President. If the Floor Leader would yield just for a
Senator
question.
may proceed.
Just a couple real quick things, just so I understand this, because when I first understood it, and you gave that reason yesterday, it was like, well, it doesn't affect us, right? Because of the fact that it wouldn't affect us unless we changed our policy.
No, unless you change companies or purchased a new policy. So in other words, if you have a current auto policy, it's just going to renew the way it is. However, if you decided to change companies, you'd be purchasing a new policy. Some companies have a rule where every vehicle you purchase is a new policy. Some companies have a limit on a policy, so you might have to buy a policy on the next vehicle that you purchase. Like my company, you could put 4 vehicles on a policy. When you bought number 5, you got a new policy. So that's when you would see this form is on the purchase of a new policy.
So, and if I remember the conversation yesterday, you said that for a new policy, this would increase the rates from potentially like $20 a month up to maybe hundreds of dollars a month.
Not a month, 6 months.
I mean a year,
Yeah,
6 months, a
6
program.
months,
Yes. Okay. So what if I can just take a minute to just get this into my terms? This would be the fact that it's not going to affect us unless we get a 5th car.
Us, your family?
My family.
Okay.
It wouldn't affect my family until I got a 5th car. But anybody that would be moving to the state of Maryland that would get a new policy, any of our constituents that are new or they're doing it, we're then raising the fees on everyone new, but this body, unless we did it, we wouldn't raise our own fees.
On your renewal. But you are getting increased coverage. You know, we're not just increasing a fee, it's also providing what could be a very important coverage if you're hit by someone who's uninsured or underinsured.
I really appreciate it, but I think you've answered my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, yes, Chair. Let's see if there are any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak. If not, Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind yielding one more time. So I'm looking through the bill, and I just want to clarify. So if there's a form, I have to affirmatively say I want to opt out, and then I won't pay the new increases.
That's correct.
But it says if you don't do it, the insurer will provide the coverage under this section. So are you saying, is this bill saying that if I don't see it, I don't act on it, it's automatically going to be increased?
Don't forget, there's a form that you will see it's required by law that you, the new insured, will review the form and sign what your choice is, enhanced or increased uninsured motorist.
And that has to be sent back to the insurance company?
In the insurance company.
Okay, and where's that in the bill?
It's part of, it talks about being part of the policy, the 14 bold point form.
And it says it has to be sent back?
Well, I think that depends on the insurance company. In my business, I had to keep a binder with those opt-out form or opt-in forms that I could be checked on audit very easily. I think that's going to depend on companies, how they keep the forms.
So they
would have.
I've got 7 kids, and they're constantly getting new policies, and they can afford it the least, to be honest with you.
We'll give them a heads up to opt out.
Let me ask you another question. So currently, when I renew, or anybody renews, do they get a form saying they have the option to opt in?
No. It was only at the time of the new purchase, or, you know, if your agent
Current
sat
law.
and reviewed, current law, at the time of purchase, or if you reviewed your policy with your agent.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, on the amendments, if there are no further discussion of the amendments, any objection to the amendments? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Chair recognizes the senator from Frederick on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to, Madam Floor Leader. Yeah,
The floor leader
yes,
yield.
Senator. Thank you.
Senator may proceed.
I guess I'm just struggling with, and I appreciate the answers. They were great answers. I guess I'm looking at it from both sides. If we currently have a system that only allows you to opt in through a form, I'm one that's telling you that I don't recall ever having, to a form that said, okay, if you want to opt in, just check here. I guess my question is wouldn't it be better to just, and then instead of now, and only 2% have, and now we're going to, on new policies, it's going to be presumed that you know and are already in, and you must opt out. Wouldn't it be better to just have a form that requires them to literally check one box or the other and have both options on there so that we know they saw it and they have the option either way, instead of giving them one extreme or the other? I just think it just makes more sense to have the form say both boxes on there. This is an extra, insurance coverage. Why do you wish to opt in, opt out, and then they sign it? It just seems like the smarter way instead of mandating one way or the other. Again, because being on this side of it, I just don't recall seeing the form, and not that I would have done it, but.
So, Senator, first off, if you haven't bought a new policy in the last 5 years, you may not have seen the form, because it's only been since a bill that we passed in 2017, it became effective in 2018. So you may not have seen that form if you've had your policy for a long time. Uninsured motorist coverage is a requirement on your policy. You have uninsured motorist coverage no matter what. This just gives you options of whether you want the enhanced or increased.
Yes, and I appreciate that, and I understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, I just think it would be a better option. So I guess with that, Mr. President, I want to ask if it's okay if we could hold or special order the bill so that I can craft an amendment for the purposes of offering either option, both options, for the second session, to the second session, so that I can have the opportunity to at least offer this. I just think it's a very reasonable request. I think we should never be requiring someone to opt in automatically that has an increased fee with it, a cost with it, associated with it, when we really want to be as transparent and give everyone in our community, with every other fees that are going up, the prices of fuel, groceries, everything. I just think this is a practical, common sense win-win for everyone. They have to opt in or they have to opt out, and then they know it's a requirement either way.
So, Senator, there is there's a House bill here. So let's hear from the floor leader. There's a House bill that's the cross file. This is still a Senate bill, so it would have to move through in 2 days. So let's hear from the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have a technical amendment on the House bill, so it hasn't come to third reader yet. There would be an opportunity to do an amendment on the House bill on third reader. And I guess this is third reader for the Senate bill?
Second reader
still. Second reader. So we have time. But we can only amend the House bill, as you know. I'm not.
Right. So I mean, it sounds like my sense is the floor leader would reject the special order for the Senate bill, but would be open to the debate on the House bill amendment on third reader. Is that a fair?
If that's your will, Mr. President.
Oh, no.
So to be clear, Mr. President, because we're on the Senate bill, and I'm just trying to learn in this moment, because we had just closed out those 3 amendments and adopted them, there's no other opportunity to add.
Well, the adoption of
request.
favorable report, and then if there were amendments too for the Senate bill. I mean, I think the issue now is that the good chairman of Triple E's bill is a long way to travel. So if there's any chance of this policy moving forward, it would be through the House bill, most likely. So.
So it's not. I'm not able to add an amendment to the Senate bill currently.
Well, the senator could.
I'm just asking for a special order
report
to the second session.
Right. That the senators moved for the special order, and so the question to the body would be whether or not the body would like the special order. So, is that the motion that the senator wants to proceed?
Yeah,
with?
I guess I would request that we make the motion, the special order, to the next second session.
Okay. All right, so
Or, I'm sorry, end of this session to just for the purposes of the amendment. And I'm just trying to give it time to be crafted and written up.
I mean,
and
we can do that. How about this? We can put it as the end of this session to see if there is a amendment.
Yeah, that's fair. I appreciate it.
Is there any objections? Does the committee okay with a special order to the end of this session? Okay.
That's agreeable. Thank you.
Any objections? Without objection, the bill will be special order
Thank
to
you,
the end
Mr.
of
President.
this session here. All right. Let's take up the committee. Let's stick with, actually, let me look around. Do we have everybody? We do. In that case, let's go ahead and take up, do we have the Vice Chair of Budget and Tax? Well, if we could ring the bells, Madam Secretary. Okay, and if we could do a quorum call.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's go ahead and take up the executive nominations report first. Making the Senator from Anne Arundel quite busy today. If we could, Madam Clerk, read the report.
the Senate Executive Nominations Committee reports favorably on the attached gubernatorial appointments and recommends that the Senate of Maryland advise and consent to these appointments. Pamela G. Bidel, Chair.
But we have report number 9. Madam Chair was just alerted that we have a revision that has to be made to this report.
Yes, we do.
So do we want a special?
Can we special order to the second session?
We can. All right. Are there any objections? Any objections? Without objection, we'll special order the report to the appropriate time in the second session today. All right. All right. Actually, before we do this, let's get these non-concurrences so that the House can start reading them. These are my favorites. I like to leave them at the end, but I'm going to start getting things moving. This is calendar number 12. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 222, Senator Augustine, Environment, Reducing Packaging Materials Producer Responsibility. This is out of the Committee of Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, Senate Bill 222, establishes a required framework for producers of packaging materials to create and implement producer responsibility plans for affected products. The House amendments strike provisions of the bill establishing the producer responsibility framework, keeping only provisions related to the creation of an advisory council and the completion of a recycling needs assessment. Mr. President, the committee moves not to concur with those House amendments.
All right, the chair urges that we not concur. Any objections? Without objections, the Senate does not concur. The clerk will read the message.
Senate Bill 222, Senator Augustine. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Augustine, Chair, Senator Hester, Senator Simon Eyre. Bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is ordered adopted. Let's pull up the next bill. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 333, Senator Hayes, Economic Development, Regional Institution, Strategic Enterprises Zone Program, Alterations and Financing, Budget and Taxation.
All right, recognizing the chair of the committee on the not concur. I'll tell you, this not concur too looks like it has like blood on it. So I don't know, this is like a brutal not concur. It's something that, tell you, somebody really was fighting this one.
Yeah, it's not good.
Just a second, Mr. President. There's a little confusion with the paperwork.
Understood. There's a lot flying. This is the one they must have had some amendments that we thought were. Does the chair want to yield to the Senator from the North?
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee moves to not concur. We had some issues with amendments on the number of facilities were allowed within zones that were allowed within a jurisdiction.
Excellent. All right, Chair moves that we not concur. Are there any objections to the motion? Without objection, the Senate does not concur with the House amendments. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 333, Senator Hayes, Economic Development, Regional Institutions, Strategic Enterprise Zone Program, Alterations and Financing. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Alfred, Chair, Senator Quarterman, Senator Zucker. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 537, Senator King, Gaming Video Lottery Operation License Renewal, Budget and Taxation.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the non-renewal in the massive stack of...
Very good. Thank you, Mr. President. The committee does not concur with the House amendments to the bill. The House amendment extends the renewal period from 5 to 15 years for a video lottery license and requires a video lottery operation license to pay a fee equal to 1% of the 3-year average of the annual proceeds from the VLT and table games. Therefore, we do not concur with the amendments.
All right, the chair moves that we not concur with the House amendments. Any objection to the motion? Without objection, the Senate does not concur with the House amendments. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 537, Senator King, Gaming Video Lottery Operation License Renewal. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Gazzone, Chair, Senator King, Senator Salling. Said bills returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
The message having been read is adopted. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 448, Senator Guile, Alcoholic Beverages Manufacturer Licenses and Off-Site Permits, Finance.
Chair recognizes the Chair of Finance on the not concur. House must have made a mistake.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I just have a minute to get organized?
Yes, let's do this. We'll special order it. What committee is next? We have two. We will, it's all right, no rush.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, on Senate Bill 448, I didn't know that we did this part. This is, we did not concur with the House amendments, so we requested that the House recede from their position, and we named conferees, so we didn't know that I needed to say something.
Okay, no worries. It's just on the House amendment. So if the chair moves that we not concur with the House's misguided amendments. Are there any objections to the motion? Any objections to the motion? Without objection, so ordered. The Senate does not recede. Clerk, read the message.
Message to the House of Delegates. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 448, Senator Guile, Alcoholic Beverages Manufacturing Licenses and Off-Site Permits. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests that the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Guile, Chair, Senator Klossmeyer, Senator Moutz. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. We have one more out of finance that's a not recede. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 506, Senator Muse, Town of Forest Heights, Prince George's County, Urban Renewal Authority for Blight, Clearance, PG 410-23, Finance.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the not concur.
Thank you. At least I am familiar with this bill and the position that the Senate Finance Committee took. The House amendments basically added, this bill deals with eminent domain in a municipality in Prince George's County for commercial space, and the House amendments added residence to this bill, and so we did not concur, and we asked the House to recede. We rejected this amendment in committee as the bill initially came in, and they sent it back with the amendment that we had already rejected.
Excellent. All right, so the Senate, or the chair moved that we not concur. Are there any objections to the chair's motion? Without objection, the motion is adopted. The Senate does not concur with the House amendments. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 506, Senator Muse, Town of Forest Heights, Prince George's County, Urban Renewal Authority for Blight Clearance, PG 410-23. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests that the House recede from its position. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is adopted. We have some conference committees to set up. Let's start with House Bill 98. Clerk will read the first message.
Message to the Senate. House Bill 98, Delegate Aaron's Condominiums Mandatory Insurance Coverage Alterations. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Holmes, Chair, Delegate Lehman, Delegate Baker. Said bill is returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. We have another message. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, House Bill 98, Delegate Aaron's Condominiums Mandatory Insurance Coverage Alterations. The Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Holmes, Chairman, Delegate Lehman, Delegate Baker. The Senate appoints Senator West, Chair, Senator James, Senator Kelly. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is adopted. We'll go to the next bill, which is 214. Clerk will read the bill and the first message. Lots of conference committees, which means busy, busy Monday.
Message to the Senate, House Bill 214, Delegate Kelly, Commission on Public Health Establishment. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Bagnall, Chair, Delegate Rosenberg, Delegate Kipke. Said bill is returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized. Clerk will read the next message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, House Bill 214, Delegate Kelly, Commission on Public Health Establishment. The Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Bagnall, Chairman, Delegate Rosenberg, Delegate Kipke. The Senate appoints Senator Lamb, Chair, Senator Ellis, Senator Reedy. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. We'll go to the next bill, 374. Clerk will read the bill and the first message.
House Bill 374, Delegate Kipke, Health Insurance Pharmacy Benefits Managers Audits of Pharmacies and Pharmacists. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Colson, Chair, Delegate Hill, Delegate M. Morgan. Said bill is returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. Clerk will read the next message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, House Bill 374, Delegate Kipke, Health Insurance Pharmacy Benefits Managers Audits of Pharmacies and Pharmacists. The Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments. The Senate respectfully requests the House reconsider and concur. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
That is, in fact, my favorite message. Yes. Message having been read is adopted very strenuously. All right, let's pull up 471. 471. Clerk will read the bill in the first message.
Message to the Senate, House Bill 471, Delegate Attar, Economic Development Regional Institutions Strategic Enterprise Zone Program Alterations and Financing. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Polakovich-Carr, Chair, Delegate Hartman, Delegate Vogel. Said bill is returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
The message having been read is ordered journalized. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee. Nope. Clerk, read the next message.
Message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, House Bill 471, Delegate Attar, Economic Development Regional Institutions Strategic Enterprise Zone Program Alterations and Financing. The Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Polakovich-Carr, Chairman, Delegate Hartman, Delegate Vogel. The Senate appoints Senator Alfred, Chair, Senator Quarterman, Senator Zucker. Said bill is returned to herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. Let's go to the concurrence calendars. Concurrence calendars now. We've got a lot, so we're going to move through. Let's start with number 8. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 41, Senator McCray, Baltimore City Property Tax Retroactive Exemption, Budget and Taxation. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a local bill that authorizes a 3-year retroactive exemption to certain properties. The House amendment alters the entity that is required to submit a report from SSTAT to the Baltimore City Finance Office. Budget Committee concurs with the House amendments.
All right, the chair urges that we adopt the House amendments. Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 41 is now again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 41 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 55, Senator West, Maryland Estate Tax Portability Time Period for Election, Budget, and Taxation.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill alters the period of time within which a person is required to file a Maryland estate tax return for the purpose of allowing a surviving spouse to take into account the deceased spousal unused exclusion amount to be consistent with the time of making a federal election. House amendment alters the retroactive clause of the bill to align with the existing law. We concur with the House amendments.
All right, Chair urges that we adopt the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate adopts the House amendments. Senate Bill 55 is now again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 55 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 114, Senator Hayes, Property Tax, Real Property Tax Rate Increases, Notice Requirements, Budget, and Taxation.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill eliminates the constant yield tax rate notice. House amendment adds information that must be included in the assessment notice and the property tax bill to provide greater transparency to taxpayers. The committee concurs.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 114 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 114 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 148, Senator Gazzone, Victim Service Programs, Supplementing Federal Funding and Support, Victim Service Stabilization Act, Budget and Taxation, and Judicial Proceedings.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you. Senate Bill 148 requires the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services to help support programs providing services for victims of crime throughout the state and authorize funding. The House amendment clarifies the funding provisions, prohibits funding from being used for capital projects. We concur.
All right, chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 148 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 148 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 274, Senator Jackson, State Retirement and Pension Systems, Earnable Compensation, Non-Vested Former Members, and Immediate Vesting, Budget and Taxation.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you. The bill requires the Board of Trustees of the State Retirement Pension System, after receiving proof of death of a former member, to pay any remaining accumulated contributions of a deceased non-vested former member to the former member's designated beneficiary, or if there is no beneficiary, to the former member's estate. Clarifies positions under existing law and clarifies retroactive salary increases are not permissible compensation. The House amendments are the same amendments added to the cross-file and provide that certain retroactive salary increases are pensionable if the member and employer contributions are made to the state retirement pensions. We concur with the House amendments.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any objections? If not, without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 274 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 274, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 283, Senator Augustine, Mental Health Workforce Development Fund, established, Budget and Taxation, and the Finance Committee.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill establishes the Behavioral Health Workforce Investment Fund to provide reimbursement for costs associated with educating, training, certified, recruiting, placing, and retaining behavioral health professionals and paraprofessionals. The Maryland Health Care Commission, in coordination with specified stakeholders, must conduct a comprehensive behavioral health workforce needs assessment and make findings and recommendation. House amendments alter the deadlines for the assessment and report from December 2023 to October 24. The committee concurs.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt the House amendments. Any discussion? Without any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 283 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 283, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 328, Senator Heddleman, Board of Public Works, Public Comment Act, Budget and Taxation.
Chair recognizes chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill requires the BPW to accept public testimony electronically. House amendment alters the effective date from October to July. Move to concur.
All right, chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 328 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 328, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 350, Senator King, Early Childhood Development Child Care Scholarship Program, Alterations, Budget and Taxation.
Senate Bill 350 is on, Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill prohibits MSDE from increasing family co-pays, reducing reimbursement rates, or reducing income eligible levels unless they notify the legislature. The House amendment adds a fourth prohibition: may not freeze enrollment in the program. Move to concur.
Our chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 350 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 350, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 457, Senator Bailey, St. Mary's County Public Facilities Bond, Budget and Taxation.
Chair recognizes chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Authorizes St. Mary's County to issue local bonds. The House amendment increases the bonding authority from 41 to 56 million. We concur.
All right, chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate adopts the House amendments. Senate Bill 457 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 457 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 469, Senator Elfreth, Task Force to Study Solar Tax Incentives, Budget and Taxation.
Membership changes. Recognizing chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes a task force. It adds members of the task force and more specifically outlines what it must study, including expanding its study beyond tax incentives. We move to concur.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield for a quick question?
Will the chairman yield?
Sure.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you. I was just wanted to know the makeup of the task force.
Yielding to the bill sponsor.
Bill sponsor.
Thank you, Senator. It's on bill page 2, including a number of members from the Senate, the House, Maryland Energy Administration, Public Service Commission, the director of SSTAT, 3 representatives from MACO, making sure that we have geographic representation, 2 representatives from organized labor, 1 from the Office of People's Counsel, 2...
That answers my question.
Okay.
I had a local question. Thank you.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.
Excellent. All right, question remains on the House amendments. All right. Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 469 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 469 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 521, Charles County Senators, Charles County Property Tax Credit for Volunteer Emergency Responders, Budget and Taxation.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill authorizes Charles County to enact a property tax credit for voluntary emergency responders with an income below a certain threshold. The House amendment lowers the income threshold from $250,000 to $150,000. We concur.
All right. The chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 521 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 521 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 556, Senator Gazzone, Maryland Community Health Resources Commission, Compensation of Employees, Budget and Taxation.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill authorizes the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission in consultation with the Secretary of Health to set up a compensation commission, set the compensation of commission employees in a position that, 1, is unique to the commission, requires specific skills and experience to perform the duties of the position, and does not require the employee to perform functions that are comparable to functions performed in other units of the executive branch of state government. The Secretary of Budget and Management will consult with the CHRC to determine which positions the bill affects. The House amendment established funding sources for that group based on base program for fiscal years 25 through 29. We concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 556 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 556 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 773, Senator Lamb, State Procurement Liquidated Damages, Policies and Requirements, Budget and Taxation.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We left the longest one for last. Bill requires that the Board of Public Works by January 1st, 24 to publish a model policy concerning the inclusion and use of liquidated damages provisions in the procurement contracts. Each unit of state government, including a unit otherwise exempt from state procurement law, to adopt a written policy that is substantially similar to the model policy by July 1, 24. Each procurement unit must also maintain specified written documentation related to decisions not to include liquidated damage provisions in contracts or not to pursue damages in the event of a breach of contract. The House amendments include requires the board to consult with the Procurement Improvement Council on the model policy on liquidated damages, requires a unit to obtain the approval of the head of the unit if the unit decides not to include liquidated damages clause in the contract, and 3, for procurements of $5 million or more, when a unit decides not to pursue liquidated damages, require a unit to obtain approval of the head of the unit to maintain documentation on the decision not to pursue liquidated damages. Move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 773 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 773 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. All right, we're going to go back to some of the second readers so that we can kind of get those moving for the third reading calendar later today.
Mr. President.
Oh, yes, thank you, Senator from Baltimore City.
For Senate Bill 41, if I could be recognized in the green.
In the
Thank
green,
you.
Senate Bill 41. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. All right, let's go to, well, let's read this one. This is a first reading House Bill, number 39, calendar 39, Madam Clerk.
House Bill 430, Delegate Wilkins, Public Safety, Maryland Police Training Standards Commission, notification of actions filed against police officer rules.
All right, bill will be referred to the Rules Committee. Let's go to, we'll stick with budget and tax. We're going to go to calendar 35. These are Senate bills, so we're going to get those moving. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 240, eccentric zoning, income tax, out-of-state taxes paid by pass-through entities, addition modification, favorable to amendments.
Recognize the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee really appreciates your focus on the committee right now.
It's very special, very special.
Senate Bill 240 is a departmental bill that requires a resident member of an out-of-state pass-through entity when calculating Maryland adjusted gross income to add back the amount of credit claimed to the state other than Maryland in order to equalize the tax treatment as compared to a resident member of a Maryland pass-through entity. So basically, this bill is about making Maryland businesses' filings as PTEs more competitive against their out-of-state competitors by leveling the playing field and requiring those out-of-state companies to be subject to the same rules. It has two committee amendments. First amendment makes technical changes, and the second clarifies that a credit claimed in another state by an out-of-state pass-through entity is added back when calculating Maryland adjusted gross income. Move adoption of two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, the floor leader moves that we the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Chair recognizes the minority whip on the amendments.
Could I ask if the chairman
will the chair yield to a question?
Could
Senator
yield
may proceed.
on this Good Friday?
Certainly.
You explained it. Can you explain it to me again so I understand? How does this work?
Let me try to. So you may remember a couple years ago, we did a bill that became law that allowed for the SALT deduction to be taken in full by certain members of the state who were members of pass-through entities. You remember the federal tax bill took that away in part.
It capped it, correct?
Correct,
Yeah,
in part,
okay.
yes. So in the process of that, when it started to get implemented and when other states also offered that opportunity, what happened was that by sort of, I guess I would call it a fluke, because it wasn't decided upon, if you are a Marylander who is a part of a pass-through entity, a business in another state.
Can you give an example?
LLCs.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Good, no, that's good.
If you are a member of that group, you will get a higher tax break than if you are a member of an LLC in a Maryland company.
Because of the way it's calculated.
Correct.
Interesting. So this bill seeks to...
This bill seeks to say that you will not, by nature of being part of a company outside the state, get a higher tax rate than an individual, both Marylanders, right?
Right.
Than an individual who belongs to an LLC within the state.
Right. And so the solution in this bill is to cut Marylanders' taxes further to match up, or no, it's to make sure that the Marylanders get it.
It's to make sure, quite frankly, the individuals who are receiving a tax break in another state, a Marylander, will now be paying slightly more, but they will then be paying what any other Marylander would be paying with a Maryland business.
Understood. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
President.
All right. On the amendments, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of any objections to the two committee amendments? Without objection, the two amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 240 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 959, Senator Benson. Higher Education Maryland 529 Program Reform. This is the emergency bill.
Recognizing the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Senate Bill 959 transfers administration of the Maryland 529 program from the Maryland 529 Board to the State Treasurer, abolishes the Maryland 529 Board effective June 1st, 2023, and makes conforming changes to specify that the State Treasurer must perform all duties previously performed by the Board. The bill also phases out the Maryland Prepaid College Trust by establishing that beginning June 1st, 2023, no new Maryland MPCT accounts may be created. Finally, the bill establishes a claims settlement process to be administered by the State Treasurer to address certain claims arising out of the administration of the Prepaid College Trust. There are two amendments. Number one makes technical changes and adds co-sponsors, and number two clarifies the fiduciary duties of the State Treasurer in administering the 529 program, establishes the claims settlement process for the prepaid trust, clarifies provisions prohibiting new prepaid accounts beginning June 1st, removes a duplicate member of the State Treasurer's Office of Education and Capabilities Commission, and makes other technical and clarifying changes. Mr. President, obviously we've all experienced the angst that was created by some of the decisions that was made by the at 529 over the last year. What this bill does, in large part, is transfer the authority for this program over to the Treasurer. And probably the biggest part and most substantial part of the program that matters to folks is it does provide for a mechanism for settlement. Now, the Treasurer will be coming up with the details of that, but it is clear that he can do that, and he will be doing that in priority order to ensure that individuals who are already in school, and those beneficiaries who are already in school, and those who would be coming on in the fall, would receive preference in dealing with putting together their settlements. So it's with that, Mr. President, that I move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right. The floor leader moves that we adopt the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th District on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader take a question?
Floor leader yield.
Our committee was second on it. We really appreciate all the work that's been done. And just looking at some of the constituent emails that are coming in, I just wanted to, just for the record, just clarify 2 points. Any parent or individual who had an issue beforehand will still now need to file a claim, even though they might have been working with the board in the past, number one. And number two, that each individual claim would be reviewed on an individual basis.
That's correct.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendments? Any objection to the committee amendments? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. We now have the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 959 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. It would be nice if it was Senate Bill 529, but you know, it is what it is. All right, okay, let's move to the capital budget. Get this moving along. Clerk will read the bill, and then we'll ask the capital budget chair to join us.
House Bill 201, the Speaker, Maryland Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2023, favorable with 267 amendments.
All right, we're going to recognize the capital budget chair to give us the report on House Bill 201.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the State Senate, the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee has completed its review of the 2024 capital budget of the state of Maryland and presents its report to you today. Let me begin first by expressing my deepest appreciation for the opportunity to serve as Capital Budget Subcommittee Chair. Mr. President, with the assistance of the Chair of the Budget and Taxation Committee, as well as the Vice Chair, as well as the Vice Chair of the Capital Budget Subcommittee, the members of the Capital Budget Subcommittee, as well as every member of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, we were able to efficiently and equitably develop the capital budget you have before you today. I also want to thank each member of the State Senate whose advocacy for their constituents is reflected in this bill. Thank you also to the staff of the Office of Policy Analysis for their tremendous guidance and assistance. In particular, Mr. President, I want to thank Matthew Klein, Emily Haskell, Madeline Miller, as well as Shannon Sullivan, who works with me in my office, and Mr. President Jody Sprinkle in the Office of the Senate President. The capital budget you have before you has taken a statewide approach where every area of the state, from Western Maryland to the Eastern Shore, will feel its benefits. This bill, colleagues, is one of Maryland's largest job creators, infrastructure, and community investment programs. Funding in this capital budget will create and maintain thousands and tens of thousands of jobs, direct and indirectly, and leverage approximately $2 billion of local and private funds. Each session, our committee takes action to ensure that the capital budget is affordable under the state's debt affordability limits, and the capital budget before you today is no exception. The level of debt authorized in this year's capital budget is well within these limits. Colleagues, preparing for a possible economic uncertainty combined with recent revenue write-downs made for certainly a more challenging budget situation than we envisioned. However, the more difficult fiscal situation did not change our goal to do the most we could to help all Marylanders across the state. And I know that you all have accomplished just that. We did that by appropriating $1.25 billion in direct investment in our communities across the state of Maryland. We did this through general obligation bond funds proceeds, $477 million in revenue bonds, including $447 million through the Built to Learn program, another $1.3 billion of general fund pay-go, that's the cash, and another $1.2 billion of special and federal fund pay-go, for a total capital budget investment program of more than $4.3 billion. And that excludes the $2.7 billion above that we provide toward the transportation program. In addition to the needs of the state agencies, the committee considered a record 480 legislative bond initiatives. So we were talking about a limit on bills. You know, we have 480 legislative bond initiatives totaling more than $230 million. The capital budget before you includes $15 million of House legislative bond initiatives as well as Senate legislative bond initiatives. That represents an infusion of capital funds to stimulate investment at the local level. The committee also considered several hundred additional requests benefiting local governments and nonprofit organizations and the capital and operating budgets provide another $675 million for local projects to assist communities and nonprofits. This, too, reflected this body's priorities. The committee is proud of its efforts in crafting this capital budget and looks forward to your favorable consideration. If I may, Mr. President, I just want to turn to some of the materials on members' desks. Colleagues, I know a number of you have come up to me on the floor just trying to figure out where everybody's projects are. So we're still updating the computer system on the floor, but what I want to do is kind of walk you through how you can access the material. You have both the report and the reprint on your desk, so you can follow me that way. But also, if you go to the main Maryland General Assembly webpage, and when you go to the search engine, just type in HB 201, and once you've pulled that up, you go down, and there's you'll see a history icon. You hit the down arrow, and it'll pull up all the history. And if you go down to the very bottom, you'll see April 7th, and it's the full committee reprint. All you have to do is hit Control F, and then you could search for your projects there. First, you have the report of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, and that's the gray back right here. So that's what I'm going to go through first, which explains each amendment recommended by the committee. Each amendment is numbered in the report and in the committee reprint of the bill. The report includes reductions, and that's mostly due because something might have been overly funded, but it's still budgeted at the correct amount. A few additions and budget bill language, all listed in the order in which the projects are listed in the budget bill. Committee narrative typically requests additional information or provides guidance. Committee narrative is not subject to is not an amendment to the bill, and therefore not subject to floor amendments. However, if you have any concerns with any of the committee narrative, please let me know. Next, you have the committee reprint. And this is what I flagged earlier for you, that you can kind of do a searchable feature on it. And of House Bill 201, the reprint reflects the committee's amendments to the bill. Amendments are numbered and correspond to the explanations in the report. This year, the Senate is considering the House, because the House moves the budget first on odd years. And Senate actions that differ from the House are set out in italics, the committee report and on the committee reprint. House actions, which the committee did not agree, are struck through. Other actions reflected in the bill and the committee report are House actions that our committee also adopted. All actions are listed in the order which the projects are listed in the bill. Please keep in mind that all floor amendments are drawn to the committee reprint. Staff of the Department of Legislative Services are available to assist in drafting amendments. Colleagues, I would appreciate if you see any changes that need to be made, please flag it for myself. Please let myself or the chair of the committee know, and we'll need it prior to Monday's session. Colleagues, we moved the capital budget as soon as we received it in an effort to provide people an opportunity to review the capital budget. We are going to ask for it to be special ordered over the weekend to Monday. I would just say, if anyone has any questions about it, please feel free to ask me today or call me over the weekend, being mindful of the holiday. So with that, colleagues, I would move to special order House Bill 201 to the appropriate time on Monday, April 10th.
All right. The senator has moved that we adopt the 267 amendments and the favorable committee report, and that we special order the report into the appropriate time on Monday. Are there any objections? Without objection, so ordered. And just a moment of personal privilege, just want to thank the senator has been navigating the bill. We got the budget on the 84th day of session. But all that work that had been happening ahead of time led us to be in a place to really be able to sit here today. Unfortunately, it's only 3 days left in session, but we are so well prepared because of the chair's work on this. And so we want to thank him for his efforts, and we're going to close it out well. So thank you. Okay. And again, I do think it is important, this capital budget, there are differences when the budget that came over from the House, and there's just a different philosophical approach. One was statewide, one was less than statewide. So we think it's really, really important that everyone see their value in the capital budget. So it was a really great job by the committee, and we'll move it along as we do on Monday. So capital budget on Sine Die is always fun. All right. Let's see, I think that does it for capital budget. Let's go ahead and move to, are we ready? Judicial proceedings? All right, if so. Oh, there is one more bill on that calendar. All right, clerk will read the next bill. Oh, right.
House Bill 1298, Delegate Chang, prior authorization of state debt alterations favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the capital budget as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, colleagues, when we pass the capital budget out, sometimes in future years we've realized that there needs to be a change of funding level, name of entity is changed. In order to make a number of those changes, we need this prior authorization bill to do that. So there were two amendments. The two amendments reflect, Mr. President, colleagues, members' request to re-identify projects. So I would move the committee amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Not all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1298 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to, well, actually, let's just read this. We've got a Senate bills passed by yeas and nays number 12. Clerk, read the bills.
Senate Bill 399, Senator M. Washington, Health Occupations Environmental Health Specialist revisions.
Majority Leader moves shall be considered the reading of the bills. Let's go to judicial proceedings. Report number 40. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 824, Delegate Clippinger, Public Safety, Regulated Firearms, Possession and Permits to Carry, Wear, and Transport a Handgun, favorable with 7 amendments.
All right, Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill increases the penalty from 3 to 5 years for illegally wearing, carrying, or transporting a handgun. The amended bill requires the State Commission on Sentencing Policy to annually submit a specified report to the Governor and the General Assembly. The bill also modifies and expands an existing prohibition relating to the possession of a regulated firearm and the requirements and the procedures relating to the issuance of a renewal of a permit to carry, wear, or transport a handgun. The amended bill also increases the maximum handgun permit fees. Under the amended bill, the Department of State Police must also transmit summaries and changes to the laws pertaining to firearms specified for specified individuals as specified in the bill, and the department must, in consultation with the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Health, develop specified training curriculum relating to the training required to obtain a handgun permit. Finally, Mr. President, the amended bill requires the Secretary of State Police to annually report on specified information relating to the issuance of handgun permits to the Governor and the General Assembly. The amended bill includes a grandfather provision relating to the requirement for existing handgun permit holders. Mr. President, there are 7 committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 increases the penalty for a violation of the prohibition of wearing, carrying, or transporting a handgun as specified. Amendment number 3 requires the State Commission on Sentencing Policy to submit that annual report. Amendment number 4 strikes provisions of the bill and requires the Department of State Police to transmit specified summaries of specified firearms by email to specified individuals. Amendment number 5 strikes provisions of the bill, alters fees for the handgun permit established in the bill. Amendment number 6 generally alters reporting requirements, and Amendment number 7 strikes provisions of the bill and establishes a grandfather clause. Mr. President, I'd move for the adoption of the favorable committee report and the 7 committee amendments.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of the 7 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the 7 amendments, Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I ask just first a procedural question of which reprint we would be looking at on this bill? Because there's a reprint for third reader under HB 824, which I assume is from the House. Or is that the reprint from the committee? I don't know.
That is the reprint from the committee.
Yes, Mr.
Senator,
Mr. President. 203421 is the proper version.
Okay. So there's a significant. So I'll just lead off. There may be other questions. There's a significant amount onto this bill, and I'm looking through. I'll start with if I could ask the chair to yield for a question, or I'm starting with an unusual position for me to be in that I got a message from the Office of Public Defender, not a group that typically I find a lot of common cause with, but sometimes they're good folks. They have one perspective that they fight for, which is good. And I got a message that was asking us to request a hold because of some penalties that were increased under wear and carry transport. There were some, they describe it as carceral responses to gun ownership. I don't know if do you know what they might be referring to or concerned about?
Well, this is a most peculiar dialogue.
Yes, I'm just saying.
It's genuine, yes, yes, Senator. So yes, what they're referring to is we've increased some of the penalties for wear, carry, transport, and you will find that on page 3 of the bill. And so you see that it's bumping up the maximum fine, the maximum penalty from 3 to 5 years, and I believe that's the I believe that's the provision that they're referring to. This provision came from a senator from Baltimore City. We heard in our committee earlier in the year.
Okay, so that's actually something where, so this is for people who are prohibited persons, that if they're caught with a firearm and they're a prohibited person, that they would be getting 5 years?
This is just for people that are wearing, carrying, or transporting who are unlicensed.
Okay, so if someone is otherwise has no criminal record, but has a firearm, and they do not have I assume it's a handgun, correct? Not just any firearm?
It's a handgun, regulated firearm.
Okay. And they don't have I assume, a wear and carry permit?
That's correct. That's what makes them eligible for this penalty.
Okay, so and there's no distinction between whether it's just someone who is carrying a firearm that doesn't have the permit or has a permit that's lapsed versus someone who has a criminal record that is specifically prohibited?
So no, there's no distinction, because if you do not have a valid wear or carry permit, then you're
breaking the law, right?
You were breaking the law, and you will be folded under.
So that takes it from 3 to 5. There's something here.
And so for the 120,000 Marylanders who have applied for a wear carry permit since the Bruin decision came down, this would not apply to them.
Right. Okay. So the rest, that's tucked into the bill, and we do want to crack down on illegal gun trafficking and gun crime for sure. But the rest of this bill is all about, there's several amendments you went over. Are we increasing fees for obtaining a permit in this bill?
Yes. So initially, if you go to, turning through the bill here, fees here. Hold on, I've got it. If you go to page, it's behind. It's unnumbered page 7. It's behind page 7, so it's unnumbered, but it's right behind 7. It just shows you. So the way that the bill came into committee, the fees basically doubled. Okay. And we have an amendment here that drops it down $25 for each. For the initial application now, you're going to pay $125. And for the renewal, you're going to pay $75. So we actually lowered it in committee.
Okay, but it does increase the fee from where it is now. You
Correct.
lowered what
from
the House
current
has.
statute, but we lowered it in our committee from what came over from the House.
Okay. Mr. President, I think there may be other folks who would have some questions on these amendments. I'm trying to look through it here because it's just come out to the floor. A question, I guess maybe I'll just make a statement, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question and answers. It's so interesting. We're now in the 87th day of the legislative session, and we can't get a bill out here dealing with repeat violent offenders or with people who commit crimes using handguns or trying to crack down on people who steal firearms. Now we're tucking this thing, this is one part of a provision that a lot of us have been supportive of, but it's thrown into a bill, once again, doing more and more to go after people who there's no documentation or any sort of source of crime. We're actually raising the fees for people to get these permits, and we're making it that if you get caught without a permit in a place like Baltimore City, where it's incredibly hard to fulfill the requirements of a concealed carry permit to get one, to go find the training space and the time available, we're going to make it more expensive for you to get the permit, and if you're caught without a permit, now you're wrapped up just like you're someone who has a criminal record and is forbidden from having a firearm. So it's really a hodgepodge here, this bill, and I guess we're going to hear more, maybe some other questions, maybe some other amendments, but a lot of concern about the way that this is coming out 87th day. We should have taken action on a lot of these kinds of issues much earlier in session as it relates to crime, but that's just my commentary on the bill. That's probably a more third reader debate, but I just feel like that needs to be said as we move forward in this discussion.
All right. Chair recognizes Senator from the 37th District on the amendments.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. I just have some questions. So with the amendments
Will
to
the floor
bill,
yield to a question? Sarah, may proceed.
Thank you. So for the amended version of the bill, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to go through it thoroughly. I did look at a previous version that I believe was implementing the good and substantial requirement. Is that still in the bill?
No, we took that out. That's stricken so that we'd be in accordance with the Supreme Court.
And the renewal period that was in the original bill, I remember
it's still the same. Every 3 years.
That does not change.
That has not changed.
Okay.
And just as a kind of an aside too, with the fees. I mean, the fees have not been raised since 1992, since in the early 90s, which is when William Donald Schaefer was governor. It's a modest increase. We've created some really important training that I think everyone in this room can agree that needs to be provided for folks that are going to be wearing and carrying. I think we've taken some really, really positive steps forward in this bill.
And you were mentioning the penalty provision that's been amended and included in the bill from 3 to 5 years. Is that the same that was in SB 889?
That's right. We had the full hearing. I'll triple check to make sure that's the right bill number, but we did have a full hearing on that issue in committee. A member of the Baltimore City delegation brought that forward to us.
Yeah, okay. And we'll have, I guess you probably couldn't answer this, but I guess this will be third reader this evening.
That depends on how we do today.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Questions on the 7 amendments? The 7 amendments. Any further discussion? If not, any objection to the 7 committee amendments? Without objection, the 7 amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any further discussion on the report? Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question, Mr. Chair, and I think that I have a potential amendment.
Senator may proceed.
I'm hoping will be accepted as friendly. So under the portion of the bill where we're increasing the penalties for a person in possession of a gun that's not registered from 3 years to 5 years, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so that would involve a person that's like merely in possession. It could be actual or constructive possession, and no other crime is necessarily happening. It's just unregistered gun. And
that's correct.
And under current law, a person convicted of that, they don't have any opportunity in the entire world for the rest of their lives to overcome that conviction. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, if you are convicted of an offense that is a misdemeanor that has a sentence for 2 years or a felony of 1 year, I think, any felony, then you become a prohibited person, which is a federal law. Which obviously we can't control. So that's a federal law that we obviously can't fix here.
Well, I understand that. So my concern, though, is this idea that, someone could be relatively young, could have been in a bad circumstance, what do you call it, circumstantial evidence that they're in proximity to a gun that's not registered and get a conviction, and there's no other crime, and I know we're rarely concerned about public safety. But once they have that type of conviction, that's really, they become more of a threat to the public safety because they don't have any options to ever overcome the conviction. And so I'm hoping you'll consider taking this as a friendly amendment. I'm going to suggest, I have one at the desk. It actually needs a technical fix, but I want to offer it anyway.
Well, so we're not quite at the amendments yet. We still have to adopt the report, but let's see. On the report, is there any further discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator has an amendment. Does the senator want to get the technical issue fixed for third reader or move forward? Okay, so the senator has an amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
So I'd just like to explain my amendment.
Oh, Senator, just give us one moment to get it on the computer, just so we have it up. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'm hoping that ultimately this might be considered as a friendly amendment. It really occurred to me rather late in the discussion, and I think it's extremely important. As we were talking about the myriad of expanded training areas that we're offering to people with registered guns, they include so many things that are necessary really for everybody, particularly someone that's in possession of an unregistered gun or ever been convicted of a crime. And so those kinds of classroom components that involve gun safety and explain to people how the importance of gun safety and behavioral issues and mental health issues and conflict resolution and a myriad of other things, I think they're important not only for people with registered guns, but even people that have been found in the criminal justice system. And so if we simply expand sentences, impose sentences, and offer no opportunity for people to ever overcome that criminality, then basically we've taught nobody anything. We've taught them nothing. Eventually they're going to get out of jail or released from parole or probation from their sentence, and they're going to be back on the street, but they don't have any education. They still don't really maybe understand the ramifications of what they did. And so I think those trainings, those classroom components of those trainings that we're offering for the registered gun owners, they should also be able to partake of those. And then once that happens, once they finish their sentence, once they learn about gun safety, they would then have an opportunity to go back to the court, to petition the court, to potentially have a modification of their sentence. And if they were to be able to do that, then they wouldn't have to be in the criminal milieu for the rest of their life. And that, to me, is smart policy, and I'm hoping you'll consider accepting it. And I understand with the amendment as drafted, it doesn't specify that we're only talking about classroom instruction and not handling of a firearm in any way. And so my technical fix would just specify only the classroom component, not the actual part, live handling of the gun.
All right, let's hear from the floor leader. Senators move the amendment.
I have just a procedural thing and then also a substantive thing. But procedurally, can you make that type of change to an amendment that's already?
It has to be. It will have to be.
It's
technical.
It's subject to amendment on third reader, so we could come back and talk about it. But so as you mentioned, as we talked about this before, I actually thank you for sharing the amendment with me, and I love this idea in concept. And as drafted, as we spoke, because you are a prohibited person for any 2-year misdemeanor felony, if you were convicted under this, if you were to go ahead and try to get that training, you're a prohibited person after your conviction. And so if you were trying to go ahead and get this training, then the second you touched the firearm, you would be subject to a 5-year penalty again. So, and a minimum of 30 days. So I think, conceptually, I really do like and appreciate the idea, but just, practically it won't work. The federal law won't let us do this. And so for that reason, I'd reject this iteration of the amendment.
Thank you.
All right, let's hear from the maker of the amendment.
Oh, thank you very much. So what I'm going to do, hopefully, is have my technical fix by third reader, and I'm hoping that we could consider this amendment. I actually believe it's one of the types of amendments that is putting us on the pathway of really being smarter about gun safety and public safety, and how we need to make sure that we aren't relegating people to an eternal life of criminality, and how we're actually figuring out how to bring them into legal citizenship. So, or legal pathways to employment and to being good citizens.
All right, thank you, Senator. So, just to be clear, the Senator is withdrawing the amendment, this iteration of the amendment, and is going to request a new version. Is that correct, Senator? Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll withdraw this amendment. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 824 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Let's stick with judicial proceedings. Calendar number 38. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 808, Delegate Williams, Reproductive Health Protection Act, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 859, which passed the Senate 33-11. The bill generally establishes additional protections for information related to legally protected health care when that information is sought by another state, and prohibits the state from taking certain adverse actions based on the provisions of legally protected health care. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 808 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. We'll go to calendar number 39 out of judicial proceedings. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 151, Delegate Wells, Real Property Residential Leases Notification of Rent Increases, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 151. This bill requires a landlord to notify a residential tenant in writing prior to a rent increase. The bill also establishes reporting requirements for local jurisdictions that adopt local laws limiting rent increases under specified circumstances. There are no committee amendments, and we move to adopt the favorable report. Thank you.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 151 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 207, Delegate Moon, Courts, Prohibited Liability Agreements, Recreational Facilities.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. The bill has a this House bill has a minor technical amendment, but we have decided to accept the minor amendment. And so basically, as amended, the bill simply adds one word, the word bodily. The bill had to do with making sure that we don't...
Senator, I think, let's just double check here. This one doesn't have any amendments on it.
Oh, the House took out bodily. Okay, it's a clean bill, Mr. President. So it's exactly as the Senate bill. They're compatible. So I'd move the bill.
All right, let's double check on this one. Let's just double check on this one to make sure that we get it right. Why don't we special order this till the end of the calendar? If that's okay. Is that any objections with that?
No.
Just to make sure that we have it the right way. All right. Any objections? Without objection, we'll special order the bill to the end of the calendar today. Let's move. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 219, St. Mary's County Delegation, St. Mary's County Golf Carts on Public Highways Report, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from District 4 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, House Bill 219 deals with St. Mary's County golf carts on public highways. This bill requires the St. Mary's County Board of County Commissioners to produce a report recommending and describing the areas of the county that the board considers appropriate for the operation of unregistered golf carts on public highways subject to specified standards. There are no committee amendments. It was unanimously moved out of committee, and I move the adoption of the amendments in the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 219 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 262, Delegate Foley, Abandoned Vehicles, Secured Parties, Electronic Notification, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill authorizes a police department that takes an abandoned vehicle into custody to notify any secured party electronically if that form of notice is agreed to by the police department, the tower, and the secured party. There are no committee amendments, and so we move favorable on the bill.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If Not all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 262 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1191, Delegate Pastor, Task Force on Preventing Countering Elder Abuse, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. This legislation, which passed unanimously out of committee, is a nearly identical cross-file to Senate Bill 797, which passed the Senate floor unanimously. The House added 2 members to the task force, a representative from the Maryland Healthcare Commission and the Maryland State Police. Move to adopt the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? All in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1191 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1194, Delegate Wyville, Town of Sharpsburg, Parking Vehicles Restrictions, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 1 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1194 is a bill that prohibits a person from parking certain vehicles in the town of Sharpsburg in Washington County. However, the bill's restrictions do not apply to the parking of vehicles that are essential for immediate use. The committee recommends favorable. There were no amendments. This bill did pass 134-0 in the House. Therefore, Mr. President, I move with a favorable committee report.
All right. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further or any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1194 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's stick with judicial proceedings. Calendar 41. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 751, Delegate Bridges, Public Safety Officer and Community Wellness Training Grant Fund, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 751 is very similar to Senate Bill 580, which passed out of this body 46-0. Essentially, the bill sets up a fund to provide grants to local law enforcement so they can provide training to identify and respond to signs of mental illness or substance abuse disorders or occupational stresses. There are no amendments. The vote was unanimous in committee. I move for the favorable adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 751 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's, while we are here, let's do this not concur, get the conference committee moving. This is Senate Bill 781. 781. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 781, Senator Hester, Offshore Wind Energy State Goals and Procurement Promoting Offshore Wind Energy Resources Act, Education, Energy, the Environment.
Recognizing Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill establishes a mechanism for the procurement of 8,500 megawatts of offshore wind energy by 2031. The House amendments alter the ways in which costs and benefits to ratepayers are assessed, adds enhanced opportunities for public comment, modifies exemption procedures for developers receiving federal incentives, and includes preferences to businesses under the Federal Department of Transportation's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program for business under a community benefit agreement. Attorney General's raised some concerns about some portions of the House amendments. And with that, Mr. President, the committee would not concur with these House amendments and would recommend the appointment of a conference committee conferees.
All right. The chair moves that we not concur with the apparently unconstitutional House amendments. Any objections? Any objections? All right. The motion carries. The Senate rejects the House amendments. Clerk, read the message.
Message to the House of Delegates. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, Senate Bill 781, Senator Hester, Offshore Wind Energy State Goals and Procurement Promoting Offshore Wind Energy Resources Act. The Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes, the two Houses Senate appoints Senator Hester, Chair, Senator Feldman, Senator Gallion. Said bill is returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is adopted. We'll hold on the concurrences. We can get to those later. Let's just keep trying to plug away at these second readers and see how many we get through. We have a special order. Mr. Minority Whip, just a quick note, we have a special order number 49. This was the clerk will read the bill. I think the special order came from
House Bill 20, Delegate Lehman, Vehicle Laws, Horse Riding Helmet Requirements for Minors. Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
Questions on the favorable report. Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. And ask the floor leader to the chairman to yield for. I think I have a question that may help me understand. Had some concerns about the bill. So
Certainly,
this bill in the past, I think, had come over. You're right, it came over from the House. Concern that was raised, I think, previously was not necessarily there'd be a helmet requirement, but what does this bill cover? I assume it covers competitive riding. I assume it covers people who are taking horseback riding lessons and all of that. Does the bill also cover if someone's taking a pony ride at a fair or things like that? Is that included in this bill?
I believe it does, yes. If you give me one moment, I'll give you a firm answer on that. But yes, depending on where it's done. So the concern I would have is this is basically putting a liability or a responsibility on. I don't think we necessarily want kids sharing helmets when they're like riding ponies at a fair or other types of petting zoos and things like that. And the reason I ask this question is I've been getting concerned about a lot of the bills we have. We put these little requirements and they start to stack up. And so, I mean, can you comment on that? Can you confirm that that's the case? So the primary purpose is equestrian, that it's covered. So I guess for the fairs and things like that, they are not included under this requirement. Is that right? If the primary purpose is not equestrian.
So if the facility is primarily an equestrian facility, this is required. But if that's not, if it's at the fairgrounds in Timonium, then it's not.
So I think that's going to be covered under this. If it's a public, yeah, I think that's covered.
Okay, we're on second reading, correct? We're on the favorable report.
I think we special ordered it at second reading, yeah.
Okay, all right. I was curious, but that's the concern I had and why I held up the bill. I don't have an amendment at this time, but it is a House bill, so if we need an amendment, we can. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from District 7 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the floor leader yield?
Senator may proceed.
So kind of piggybacking up on what the Senator from Carroll County had said, looking at the bill, it says the grounds of a facility for which the primary purpose is recreational, educational, or competitive equestrian activities. I think that's pretty vague. Take the fairgrounds, for instance, Maryland State Fairgrounds. They have one little area that's the area for horse riding for the equestrian events, but they have the cow palace with cattle. They have the sheep barns, the hog barns. You got the 4-H buildings. That's not the primary purpose. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, would they be required in that facility?
It's not a defined term, and so
okay.
I suspect it would have to deal with all the extenuating factors that deal with
okay. I think that's something we could probably look at as an amendment for third reader to clarify that.
Excellent.
All right. Question remains on the report. Any further discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or so? Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two amendments.
Two amendments. Senator, want to make a motion? Well, actually, let's see if we could introduce maybe the motion on the amendment. Let's take the amendment first. Pages will collect and distribute the amendment. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Looking at the bill on page 2, line 14, back to line 12, subject to subparagraph 2 of this paragraph, this subsection applies only to horse riding on, and it lists 3 facility or 3 locations. 1, a highway, which would be public. 2, a public horse riding path. Or 3, the grounds of a facility for which the primary purpose is recreational, educational, or competitive equestrian activities. My concern is that could also include private property. So what my amendment does is it just adds the word public to that third line, that it applies to a public facility, not a private.
All right, let's hear from the...
No, thank you, Mr. President. I discussed this amendment with the sponsor and I consider it to be a friendly amendment.
All right, any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Senator has another amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment deals with the next section of basically where it does not apply. And it goes through several areas such as, a member of the Amish or Mennonite community, crossing a public highway that separates privately owned land, or if you're in competition where helmets are not normally used. But I'm adding an amendment to include therapeutic riding facilities. Those places are out there. I used to have one in my district, but now it's due to redistricting, I don't represent it anymore. But these are places where kids go. Sometimes they have emotional issues or physical incapacities, and they can ride, and it helps them. And what we found is some kids, they physically can't wear a helmet because they might have some type of other protective headgear that they wear, or emotionally, they just don't like things on their head. And I think you got to realize these therapeutic facilities are using ponies that are, I'm not going to say heavily sedated, but they do this every day. You have numerous handlers that are with them. So I think it's safe to say, hey, look, if a kid can't wear a helmet in this situation, it would be okay. So I move the amendment.
All right, the Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, sponsor, for sharing it with me ahead of time. Consider it a friendly amendment.
All right, no objections. Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 20 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to Finance Committee, report number 57. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 827, Delegate Ivy, Prince George's County Gateway Arts Development Authority established, favorable of 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. House 827, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 696, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill establishes the Prince George's Gateway Development Authority in Prince George's County to support the development and approval of a comprehensive neighborhood revitalization plan in the target area in the county. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the name of the authority. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 827 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go back to budget and tax. See how quickly we can get through some of these. This is report number 36. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 179, Delegate Cardin, Maryland Estate Tax Portability Time Period for Election, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee is the floor leader. We may have to call OIS here for a little. Yeah, I think we can make that work. Yes, for now.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 179 is a matching cross-file to Senate Bill 55 is amended by the House and concurred to by the Senate. The bill alters the period of time which a person is required to file a Maryland estate tax return for the purpose of allowing a surviving spouse to take into account the deceased spousal unused exclusion amount to be consistent with the time for making a federal election. The bill applies retroactively to decedents dying on or after January 1st, 2019. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 179 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 186, Delegate B. Barnes, Victim Services Program supplementing federal funding and support, Victim Services Stabilization Act, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 30th District as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is in its current form. House Bill 186 is the exact match of the Senate bill that we just passed a few hours ago. Just as a reminder, this is basically a maintenance of effort bill to ensure that our funds that go to victim services is maintained at $60 million so that all of the providers across the state can continue to do their good work. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments, and I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 186 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 247, St. Mary's County Delegation, St. Mary's County Transfer Tax Sunset Extension, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from District 6 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 247 extends the termination date for St. Mary's County Authority to impose a transfer tax from October the 1st, 2024 to October the 1st, 2028. There are no amendments, so move favorable to adoption to the favorable committee report, Mr. President.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 247 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 543, Delegate Tomlinson, State Procurement, Small Procurement, definition, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 6 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 543 raises the maximum dollar value threshold for most small procurement from $550,000 to $100,000 and making conforming changes to other specific small procurement thresholds. There are no amendments. We move adoption to the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or title? Seeing none, House Bill 543 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 584, Delegate Ebersol, Income Tax Credit Food Donations by Qualified Farms, Sunset Repeal and Alterations, Farmers Feeding Families Act, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 7.
In 2016, this legislature passed this legislation, the Farmers Feeding Families Act, which offered tax credit up to 50% to qualified farms donating food to needy families. What this bill does is it repeals the sunset which would sunset this year. It makes it permanent and increases the percentage from 50% up to 100% in donation and caps that to a $5,000 limit. And also states that the General Assembly that the Maryland Department of Agriculture continue to fund the marketing of this program to get the word out. So with that, Mr. President, I move the favorable bill.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 584 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 701, Delegate Kipke, Maryland Community Health Resources Commission and Office of the Comptroller, Treasurer, and Attorney General, comp and pay scales of employees, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 701 authorizes the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission in consultation with the Health Secretary, the Comptroller, in consultation with the Health Secretary, the Comptroller, in consultation with the Secretary of Budget Management, the Treasurer, in consultation with the Secretary of Budget Management, and the Attorney General, in consultation with the Secretary of Budget Management, each to set up compensation or pay scale of specified employees. The Secretary of Budget Management must consult with the MCHRC and each agency to determine which positions the bill affects. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 701 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 707, the Speaker, Office of the Comptroller, Taxpayer Advocate Division, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 707 is similar to Senate Bill 660, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. Departmental bill establishes a Taxpayer Advocate Division in the Comptroller's Office. There are no amendments. Move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 707 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 735, Chair Appropriations Committee, University System of Maryland Facilities Bonding Authority and Sale, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Capital Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is annual language regarding University System of Maryland facilities, academic facilities bonds. What happens is we usually put it in the budget, and then it goes to the Capital Debt Affordability Committee, and then approved by the Spending Affordability Committee. So that stays consistent. The only modification is there's been an update where if it goes to allows for non-residential off-campus property, if it's sold and the Board of Regents sign off, it could be used for operating expenses for other projects. I would, there's no amendments. I'd move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 735 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 783, Montgomery County Delegation and Prince George's County Delegation, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission Minority Business Enterprise Utilization Program Revisions and Extension MC/PG 101-23, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 783 renews the authorization for the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission to establish a minority business enterprise procurement preference program until July 1, 2028. It eliminates the distinction between the MBE, or the Minority Business Administration enterprise programs established by WSSC for construction and goods or services, establishes the legal justification for WSSC to operate a minority business enterprise program, streamlines and clarifies certification requirements for the MBEs, or the minority business enterprises participating in the program, and includes additional clarifying technical changes to WSSC Minority Business Enterprise Program authorization. There were no amendments. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 783 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 887, St. Mary's County Delegation, St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission, New Facilities, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 6 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 887 updates the public law, local law of St. Mary's County to require the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission to obtain approval from the St. Mary's County Commissioners of any loan application where Medcom seeks to incur debt on the full faith and credit of the county prior to the submission of the loan application to a lender as specified. The bill defines new facilities and updates the definition of service area in the county. The bill will codify existing practices of MECI and makes confirming and technical changes. There is no amendments. We move adoption of the favorable report. Thank you, sir.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 887 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1288, Delegate Charles, Video Lottery Employee Licenses, Crimes of Moral Turpitude, Alterations, favorable. Chair
recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1288 exempts an applicant for a video lottery employee license from disqualification for conviction, active parole, or probation within the prior 7 years, or current prosecution for any crimes involving moral turpitude under the laws of the United States or any state. If the conviction, active parole, probation, prosecution involves a nonviolent misdemeanor offense other than a crime involving gambling, for which the applicant participated in and completed a problem-solving court program. Problem-solving courts are those under the Office of the Problem-Solving Courts. Solving courts are those under the Office of Problem-Solving Courts or a comparable program from another court system. The bill takes effect July 23. There are no committee amendments. All the testimony was favorable. It was passed unanimously at a committee. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1288 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Senators, any members of the Rules Committee that are not on budget and tax, ideally, if the Rules Committee could please meet the Rules Chair and Vice Chair in the Silver Room, the Red Room, across the hall. We have some rules issues. Madam Chair, Chair of Rules.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Rules Committee meet in the Red Room real quick? We only have a few minutes. I'll meet you across the hall.
All right. Thank you. And those senators who are remaining not on rules, we will, if there's a bill that's controversial or an issue, just let us know. We'll come back to it. Don't think we do on this calendar, but we'll see. Report number 38. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 263, St. Mary's County Delegation, St. Mary's County Gaming Senior Activity Centers, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. 263 authorizes senior activity centers in St. Mary's County to conduct gaming events, bunco games, or card games. A senior activity center may not award a monetary prize exceeding $50 to a winner each session or charge a participant more than $25 to play one session. Any proceeds from the gaming event, bunco game, or card game must be used to support future programming at the Senior Activity Center. There are no committee amendments. Move adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 263 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 377, Montgomery County Delegation, Montgomery County Village of Friendship Heights Special Taxing District, Procurement, MC 15-23, favorable.
All right. Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 377 is a local bill that raises the contract value threshold from $5,000 to $20,000, above which the Friendship Heights Village Council must solicit competitive bids for a contract. It also authorizes the council by majority vote to enter into an emergency contract that exceeds $20,000 in value without seeking competitive bids. There are no amendments, and I move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 377 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 404, Delegate Feldmark, Property Tax, Local Homeowners Credit Supplement, Limitations on Combined Gross Income, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from District 30 as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 404 is an opt-in bill. It alters the provisions of law that authorizes local governments to provide a local supplement to the state homeowners property tax credit by adding combined gross income as an additional way to measure income eligibility instead of just combined net worth income. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 404 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 418, Delegate Bagnall, Mental Health Workforce Development Fund established.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 418 is a match and cross file to Senate Bill 283 as concurred to by the Senate. The bill establishes the Behavioral Health Workforce Investment Fund to provide a reimbursement costs associated with educating, training, certifying, recruiting, placing, and retaining behavioral health professionals and paraprofessionals. Move adoption of the committee report, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 418 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 547, the Speaker Family Prosperity Act of 2023, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee. The floor, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the cross-file for Senate Bill 552, which we approved earlier in the session. It holds down taxes for working families by extending the expansion of the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Credit that we passed 2 years ago. There are no amendments. Move the favorable report.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 547 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 665, Delegate Feldmark, Controller and State Department of Assessments and Taxation Enhancing Access to Property Tax Benefits, report favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you again, Mr. President. House Bill 665 requires the Comptroller and the State Department of Assessments and Taxation to confer during the 2023 legislative interim to identify ways the Comptroller and SDAT to raise awareness to specify property tax benefits available to taxpayers. There are no committee amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report, Mr. President.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 665 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1096, Delegate Nowacki, Baltimore County Property Tax Exemption, real property owned by fire company or rescue squad, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from District 7 as the floor leader.
House Bill 1096 is a local Baltimore County bill. This deals with volunteer fire companies and the real property that they own. What this bill does is offers a tax exemption for that real property if, A, the property is used exclusively by that fire company for the purposes of providing their services, or B, will be used, because some locations buy property to expand their facilities, their buildings, their firehouses. There was no opposition and no amendments. I move favorable in the report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1096 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right. Well, let's see. We can try for report number 52. Let me just, let's hold on that one for a minute, actually. That might be. Trying to find something that doesn't have anything. This should be good. All right, we'll go to Education, Energy, and the Environment, report number 54. 54. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 62, Delegate Shakutian, Land Use, Public Service Companies, Pollinator-Friendly Vegetation Management, Utility Designated Pollinator Areas, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the President Pro Tem as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 62 is a cross-file bill, prohibits a local government from imposing any unreasonable limitation, including a land use restriction on a utility-designed pollinator area maintained by a public service company if, one, the area is subject to a candidate conservation agreement between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the public service company, or two, the public service company maintains and regularly tends to the area by performing or overseeing pollinator-friendly vegetation management as specified. There is one committee amendment. The amendment confirms this cross-file to the Senate bill by establishing that the intent of the General Assembly is to avoid limiting or interfering with noxious weed laws through this legislation. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report and the one committee amendment.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is amended, is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 62 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 149, Delegate Hornberger, Maryland Electricians Act revisions, favorable. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the Senator from District 10 as the floor leader.
Thanks, Mr. President. This emergency bill cross-file makes several changes to the Maryland Electricians Act. Specifically, The bill, one, clarifies the entity that must approve a registered apprenticeship program for electricians. Two, substitute the term uninsured for inactive in certain provisions of the law relating to master electricians. Three, prohibits certain persons from contracting to provide electrical services unless the work is covered by specified insurance. Four, identifies who is authorized and required to purchase insurance when providing electrical services. And five, requiring the State Board of Electricians to specify on each license whether the license holder meets the relevant insurance requirements. There are no committee amendments, and I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 149 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 169, Delegate Shakudian, Public Utilities, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Programs, Energy Performing Targets, and Low-Income Housing, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore City and County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 239 establishes the essentially
Senator, I'm sorry, 169.
I'm the floor leader. Sorry about
Chair
that.
of the committee.
Yes, jumping ahead here. Hold on one second, Mr. President. I will get that piece of legislation in one moment. Yes, Mr. President, House Bill 169 is, which passed unanimously out of the committee, is a cross-file of Senate Bill 144, which passed out of the Senate earlier this session, requires the Department of Housing and Community Development to procure or provide energy efficiency and conservation programs, services for electricity customers for the 2024 to 2026 Empower Maryland program cycle. The programs and services must be designed to target annual incremental gross energy savings compared to 2016. The bill also establishes the Green and Healthy Task Force staffed by DHCD. Number two, establishes several reporting and planning requirements for DHCD and the Public Service Commission, and includes the development of a plan to provide energy efficiency retrofits to all low-income households by 2031. And finally, Mr. President, requires the Maryland Department of Transportation and the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women-Owned Businesses to conduct a related disparity study by December 31st, 2025. Again, this is in the same posture as Senate Bill 144, which passed with an overwhelming majority earlier this session. And with that, I'd move, there are no committee amendments, so I just move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 169 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 239, Delegate J. Long, Accessory Dwelling Unit Policy Task Force, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore City and County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just so excited that this bill is finally passing. Accessory Dwelling Unit Task Force. The task force will be staffed by the Maryland Department of Planning. You know of ADUs as granny flats, carriage houses, cottage houses, etc. Under current law, there is no statewide policy. This group is to look at that and explore how they might be regulated, location, size, etc. There are two reporting dates at the end of this year and then the end of the following year. There is one committee amendment. It strikes the unnecessary portion of a purpose paragraph to conform to the Senate version of the bill. I ask for the adoption of the favorable committee, the adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 239 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Thank you very much for the help. Appears to be fixed. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 370, Delegate Rogers, 688th Central Postal Directory Battalion Day, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 23rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a direct crossfire of Senate Bill 265 that passed out of this chamber. This bill requires the governor to annually proclaim March 9th as the 6888th Central Postal Directory Battalion Day in recognition of the service of the women of the 6888 Central Postal Battalion during World War II. There are no committee amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 370 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 480, Delegate Rogers, Department of Veterans Affairs, Burial and State Veterans, Cemetery, Spouses, and Dependents. Favorable.
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 31st as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is identical to Senate Bill 286, which is sitting on the governor's desk right now. This cross-file bill requires Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs to bury an eligible spouse or dependent of the veteran in a state veteran cemetery without charge. The department must provide a grave liner at no cost to the veteran or the spouse or dependent and stay within federal regulations. There are no amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 480 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 630, Delegate Queen, Utility Account Holders, Victims of Abuse Protections. Favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, when someone who is being abused needs to move out of their residence and start their lives fresh, one of the things that they are sometimes burdened by is their utility bills. And this cleans that up and enables them to basically sever their ties to their utility bills, open a new account so that they will not be burdened by any debt that exists in their old sort of marital or residential account, and move forward. There's a brief technical amendment that just clarifies that we want protective order rather than peace order. So I'd move for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is amended, is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 630 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 817, Delegate Rosenberg, State Government Regulation Procedures in the Maryland Registrar. Favorable with three amendments.
Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore City and County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 817 is in the same posture as amended as the Senate bill that passed this body. The bill deals with the process of the review of the administrative regulations created by agencies. This bill arose from some computer issues and that we wanted to address, as well as qualifying and establishing the procedure and strengthening the transparency. There are three committee amendments. The first committee amendment is technical. The second amendment establishes procedures for non-substantive changes to regulation. So under current practice, if something is considered a non-substantive change, then the agencies are able to just make the change without coming back to AELR. Well, that non-substantive and substantive is subjective. So this establishes a process by which we can determine whether or not something is substantive. And then the third amendment restores language requiring the administrator of the filing system to consult with DLS in maintaining the system, and requires the administrator to submit a report to AELR. I move for the adoption of the three committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the three committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the three committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 817 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 844, Delegate Pasture, Housing and Community Development, Common Ownership Community Website, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 23rd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill requires the Department of Housing and Community Development to establish and maintain a website that provides information on the current rights and responsibilities of individuals living in a common ownership community. DHCD must make publicly available on the website a hyperlink to the website of each local COC program in the state. And number two, information on statewide legislation enacted in the prior legislative session regarding the rights and responsibilities of individuals living in a common ownership community. There are no community, there are no committee amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 844 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's do this. Madam Clerk, if we could ring, Madam Secretary, if we could ring the bells. We're going to do one third reading calendar that has Senate bills to get those out. And then I think we're going to break, aiming for 2:30. We want to make sure that we get our pages too, so we're going to thank our pages. So we have time there. And then schedule-wise, we're looking 4:30 as the time to come back. And then it may be 2 sessions tonight. So there may be a break in between the 4:30 and the next one. So we'll see where we are and how much we get through, but 4:30 is going to be our target. And it's going to be a real 4:30, not a Senate 4:30, a real 4:30. Certainly not a JPR 4:30. Out of love. All right, we're going to go to Senate third reading calendar number 67. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 30, Senator Kagan, Study on Statewide 211 and 311 Systems.
Senate Bill 30 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the good clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 30, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 265, Senator Watson, 688th Central Postal Directory Battalion Day.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 23rd District on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is identical.
Oh, nope, Senator, we're on third reading.
Third reading.
We're all good. Senate Bill 265 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, very excited about the 6888 Central. I like it. All right. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
It was interesting. Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 265, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 307, Senator Klossmeyer, Financial Institutions, Mortgage Loan Originator, Independent Contractors.
Senate Bill 307 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 307, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 906, Senator Rosapep, Economic Development Industry 4.0 Technology Grant Program.
Senate Bill 906 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 906, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 931, Senator Hester, Public Utilities Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity and Meter Aggregation.
Senate Bill 931 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 38 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 931, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we're going to call it there. We're going to hold there. Let's go ahead and recognize if we could get the majority leader and the minority leader. And, Chair recognizes the vice chair of the committee.
Before we do the pages, could I just recognize one of the most talented interns I've had in a very, very long time. Bronte Nevins has been with me remotely most of the time as she is in graduate school in Princeton, but she hangs out in Montgomery County and in Maryland a lot. She has worked with Do the Most Good and a lot of other nonprofits, the Kenilworth Development Corporation, I hope I'm Central Kenilworth Avenue Revitalization, CDC, Riverdale. She's just done some awesome stuff, and she is smart and hardworking and available, and it has just been a pleasure. So please join me in welcoming Bronte Nevins to the Senate.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for your work this year. Thank you. Let's do the pages quickly, and then we'll do other announcements. And we got to do committee announcements too. But let's start with the pages. If we could get the majority leader and the minority leader for. Do we have the resolutions? Yes, perfect, wonderful. Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor on behalf of the Protocol Committee to thank our pages. They've just completed their second week of the session with us, ladies and gentlemen. So if you could give them a round of applause as they receive their citation. Our first page is Umani Diallo, Prince George's County, Bowie High School, District 24. Our next page is Aiden Elgin, Kent County, District 36, Kent County High School. Our next page is Mackenzie Jennings, Baltimore City, District 40, Mergenthaler Votech High School. The next page is Hayden Kelly, Calvert County, District 27, Huntingtown High School. Next, we've got Paige LaCourte, Carroll County, District 5, South Carroll High School. Madeline Schmidt, Charles County, District 28, La Plata High School. And to close it out, we've got Jaden Walker, Prince George's County, District 23, Bowie High School.
Excellent, excellent. You all did a wonderful job for your 2 weeks. You got to see a little bit of everything. Make sure we get a good picture here. Excellent. Well, thank you, Pages. We are so proud of you, and you all represent the best and the brightest of what we got in the state of Maryland, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Some of you, I think, may be staying along for the later sessions, but if anybody has to run, we wanted to make sure you had your citations out beforehand. So thank you for all that you did. Thank you. Sarah, may proceed.
And Mr. President, it's been a long week. I think everybody's really tired. The old saying is the troops are tired. And I just want to ask everybody just to gas it up one more time, because today we are celebrating, permission to use the senator's name.
Senator may proceed.
The birthday of our very own Senator, Senator Chris West. Happy birthday, Senator West.
Happy birthday, Senator. Every time we announce the senator's birthday, I know we are right around the corner. It's every session, I know we're right there when it's senator's. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 38th District.
Thanks, Mr. President. If I could do a vote change, SB 307 from yea to nay.
307, yea to nay. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. All right, so timing-wise, 4:30, a hard 4:30. Hard 4:30 is when we are going to be coming back. So let's start with the Chair of Finance, and we have something immediately following.
Senate Finance will meet at 3:45 for a voting session.
3:45. Uh-oh, looks like Education, Energy, and Environment had second thoughts about the time. Executive decision?
Is there like a press conference?
Yeah.
Okay, committee will meet at 3:15 for a photo in the committee, followed by one short bill hearing, or two short bill hearings, and then a voting session. Okay, 3:15.
3:15. Thank you, Senator. Budget and tax?
We will meet at 4 o'clock for a very quick hearing and very quick voting.
All right. Judicial proceedings?
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll meet at 3:15 for one very quick bill hearing, followed by a voting session.
3:15. All right. Any other announcements between now and 4:30? Any events or issues? General for the good of the order? Let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned, not recessed, adjourned, until this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. promptly.
Without objection, so ordered. Let's go O's.